David Stryzewski joining us now, Sound Planning Group. David, how are you, sir? Welcome.
Hey, doing fantastic, John. How about yourself?
Good. Merry Christmas to you. I don't know that I'll talk to you before then, so hope you have a great Christmas. Talk to us about the latest jobs report, which might not look as rosy as the numbers actually say.
Yeah, well, these jobs numbers come out and of course we get this headline figure. And so everyone gets excited. It makes all the news reports. And it said we had 227,000 positive jobs in the month of October. Sounds amazing. However, if you look at the household survey, as in you call people's houses and you say, hey, do you have a job? Yes or no? We lost 355,000 jobs last month.
Okay, so how can there be so much discrepancy between the two?
Okay, so if you're just looking at the ADP jobs report, you could have two part-time jobs and be counted twice on that report, as I just got hired twice. But you really only have the equivalent of one full-time job, and those aren't even good jobs. So full-time jobs, part-time jobs are all counted the same in that government statistic. When you get down to the actual what is happening in the private sector, though, this is where it's different. And if you look at private sectors, they've been doing big layoffs here for the last 9 months straight. And so last year the number we had was 1.2 million were looking for work. Now we're looking at 1.7 million unemployed. So that's 500,000 more Americans that are still looking for work. And by the way, there's plenty that have stopped looking.
But the Fed says everything's great, David.
Yeah, they also say that they're federal in the place of reserve.
Good point. Good point. Well, and I wanted to bring this up with you specifically because you watch these numbers and I do as well. And I also know, despite what a lot of people think, most people think that unemployment is done through reporting of employers and ADP and paychecks and companies like that. And nothing could be farther from the truth. They do exactly what you said a moment ago. They literally go out and poll X amount of Americans, and it's a pretty big job. It's still, in my opinion, David, pretty antiquated, but that's how they actually do it. They do not go off of those numbers. Now, some of the hiring numbers, they will take what ADP and some of the others say, but keep in mind, as you know, David, ADP doesn't service every single business out there.
Correct. And here's the interesting thing, John. We're having fewer people actually filling out these surveys or completing them. And so the record low numbers actually in participation right now. So it's not even like a robust thing that we should really be paying attention to. This is very anemic, actually. So much so that if you'll remember, in March every year, they give you the official number of how many jobs were there and not after the seasonally adjusted stuff is out of there. But we only get it once a year. Jobs were revised down by 818,000 for the 12 months prior. 818,000. Tell me another job that you can have that you miss your official numbers so significantly. I mean, we're looking at almost like more than a third.
Right.
And you still keep your job. You're still credible. You're still whatever.
Absolutely.
I just don't see this.
Well, and here's a question for you, and this has been kind of in the back of my mind, and I don't know. I'm not I'm not privy to this information, but it would seem like, David, that they want some of these numbers now to look better than what they are, because that's a little bit of a boost for the Democrats and Joe Biden himself. Yet after Trump gets inaugurated, my anticipation is you'll see the real numbers and what those things actually look like once Trump enters office, because then it'll all be blamed on him.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's no question, and this is not even an opinion. The NBER, which is the organization that officially says that there's recessions or not, are very, very liberal. In fact, I believe 100% of them were appointed by Obama. And so, they've given us some very interesting government numbers here where we see that actually government hiring has far exceeded private sector hiring in these numbers. And they get revised down so significantly, and we make, not a big deal of it. So Wall Street's complicit for not making a big enough deal of it and just going along as the Pied Piper.
Well, no offense, David. A lot of those are in the same camp, politically speaking. And I just know because a lot of traders, a lot of folks on Wall Street are very liberal.
Yeah, well, sure.
Which by the way, side note, David, makes no sense to me.
I think there's a lot of them that are just they vote based upon a dollar and not necessarily ideals and some of the same reasons why you or I might do it as we're raising kids or families and we're part of communities in different ways. But there's Wall Street serves Wall Street, DC serves DC. Both sides of the aisle have their challenges, no question. I think that we, the people, are the ones that really actually have the voice, though. And what's awesome is that we're starting to get it back. And I feel like I have more of a voice right now with this department of let's cut some. I'm
glad you're going. I was going to go there anyways. You beat me to it. DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency. Okay, let's talk for a moment. You mentioned a moment ago about the fact that government right now is hiring more than the private sector, and it is. The data shows that. So we get DOGE going, and you get Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy that basically say, hey guys, guess what? We're not going to spend some of the money in some of these areas we once were. In fact, some of you that have jobs now probably ought to be looking for a different job because you may not have this job any further. If in fact they get some of these things done, which by the way, I believe they will, what effect will that have economically on us? Or will it?
Well, good question. I think that there will be I'll say this. Our ecosystem is very unhealthy right now.
Correct.
And so we need to start with that as a premise.
Correct.
The second thing is to say, how do you fix it? Well, if your outgo exceeds your income, your upkeep is going to be your downfall. We've got so many people, 14,400, turning 65, literally in the year 2024. It's the biggest group of baby boomers turning 65 is in the year 2024.
Okay.
Now, we have all these boomers going into Social Security and Medicare. What's going to happen with our spending? These organizations that have been, we've been paying into for all these years. Well, guess what? We're paying the Pied Piper now, and we're living longer than ever before.
Right.
And so we have some significant challenges. What'll be the issue, though, when we start cutting? Well, there'll be people that will certainly believe that they are disadvantaged and disenfranchised, and I'm sure the lawsuits will come, and there'll be a lot of crazy stuff. I hope, though, that we can, as a nation, have a real conversation about some things and say, you know what? Does it make sense the way that we're running this? Would anyone run their household like this? Because if this isn't the way that we'd run our household, why would we, the people, run our government like this? That's the biggest thing that tells me that it's not actually our government.
Right. And so, agree. And by the way, I agree with what you just said a moment ago. I do think there's going to have to be some really staunch hard conversations along those lines. My fear is, and it's a wholesome fear, David, is that what you just said, while that makes sense to you and I, about families and spending and so on, the typical government worker, I'm not sure comprehends what you and I just said along those lines, because I don't think they look at life the same way you and I do. There are some that do, and I've got some that listen to this program that very much are in that same camp and agree with what you and I are saying. But I'm fearful that there's far too many that don't, that to your point earlier, will balk at any type of cuts and the lawsuits will come flying.
Well, and if you really want to incite riots and everything, why don't we tell everybody that people are evil and all this other stuff like they've alienated President Trump, through all these years. And then there's people shooting at him, 3 times now, and that's not a big deal. Holy smokes, we are divided right now. This is the opportunity where we can heal and we can, as a nation, you know what, when cuts come, if I was the person getting some cuts taken away from me, something taken away from me that I really needed, or even that it was excessive and expensive, but man, I was really benefiting from it, man, I would be hard. I don't think that there's an easy way to do that. Now, there is some ways to just cut some jobs for people that aren't willing to show up. Well, that's easy, okay? But there are some real hard conversations we've got to have. And,
and really quick, I've mentioned this before on the program, and see if I'm correct in my thinking. But first thing I would do is, number one, if you got folks that are getting close to retirement in the governmental systems, well, just whatever you need to do to encourage that. You're still going to save money on down the road when it comes to payroll, that retirement they're going to get no matter what. So my number one thought is take some of those elderly government workers. Let's encourage them to move on. And that becomes really easy at that point. The next thing I would look at is if you've worked in government for 5 years or less, no offense, you don't have a lot going for you anyways. You don't have a lot of stake in the game. We're going to cut you as well. And then lastly, David, I think the way you get to thin the herd is you move the agencies in a lot of cases themselves. And through that move, you'll have some attrition no matter what, because some of those people just won't move. If you take an agency, by the way, that's in DC and you move it to Colorado, for example, some of those folks are just going to say, yeah, no pound sand, I'm staying where I'm at. And I think you'd have pretty good grounds to just say, well, we offered you the job. We said that we would even pay some of your moving expenses to go. You're the one that decided to stay. You no longer have a job.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. There's going to be a big national conversation for sure. And it'll be great to find some efficiency. I'm very much a ready aim fire. I feel like a lot of the, that which, came down, these last 4 years, by executive order, even the state of Washington, where I'm at, and by executive order is just absolutely insane.
Just kill some of that stuff right off the bat. That to me, that's the easy stuff. That's the low hanging fruit.
Right. Right. But, we got to get our nation back to work. So it's supply side economics that are going to do the things that are going to get us back and hustling and doing the things that we were really good at. It's the entrepreneur spirit. I think inflation's here, though. And so we got some real hard stuff that's going on. And I like what you were just talking about with the guest earlier about people's budgets and not overspending and, adding a little extra credit line instead of getting a different credit card. That was a great tip. People need to understand if their outgo exceeds their income, their upkeep will be their downfall. Same problem as Uncle Sam. You are responsible for yourself. People have to understand that there's no nation that's going to come and rescue us if we fall apart. Okay. Now here's the interesting thing about credit cards. And this is actually really scary. Unsecured lines of credit, actually. And if people just say that they're done with it, well, those are gone if you file bankruptcy. So I think that we're probably going to see a lot of carnage coming, although a lot of good things. But there's a lot of carnage coming as different industries and people and sectors start to fall apart as our economy changes here, ultimately for the best. But when you go from one thing to the next, we just have to understand they ebb and they flow.
That's right. No, you are 100% correct. And my advice to folks is, number one, and I guess maybe because I've been one of those entrepreneurs the majority of all my adult life, actually, David. I mean, I've been self-employed since 1986, so I wasn't very old when I started. And the reality is, when you're self-employed, there's always, and I know folks, I've read even books that say, don't have a plan B because you don't have a plan B, you got to make plan A work. Well, while I agree with that premise, I think it's very foolish to not have some alternative that, hey, if all of this goes south, I can still go do X. No, that's not my main plan, and I'm not going to work towards that. But I do have a relief valve, if you would, that's out there. And by the way, David, most people don't think that way.
No, and most people need the education right now. So think about this. We need the right education because there are certain industries that are just not going to work. AI is going to take certain things out very easily, especially if you jack up minimum wage to $15 an hour.
That's right.
So, you're going to see big shifts and changes. So become employable, become key inside of the organizations that you're working at, or be that entrepreneur and create the next stuff because there's so many opportunities and things out there for people to be doing and to be taken advantage of. But this is definitely not for the faint of heart. And as we're changing, I just hope that real conversations can happen. People can actually look one another in the eyes and remember that we are the United States after all, not the divided states.
Right.
And so let's bring our united ideas together, even though they might sound different. And I guarantee you, we're going to find some harmony. We've been doing it for 250 years. We can continue to do it. We just need the right leadership.
Fully agree with you, David. As always, appreciate you very much. How do folks find you and follow you?
Hey, myspg.com is our website. We've got a number of things that are going on here. I got some classes that are going to be coming out in the first month of the year online. So people that are more interested in getting information on Medicare and Social Security and retirement planning, I'll call this the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act 2.0. Okay. I'm just in the process of finishing up this class as Trump is going to reignite that. And it is literally the single greatest opportunity in our lifetimes to reduce or eliminate taxes on our retirement dollars.
David, as always, appreciate you, sir. Have a great Christmas.
Hey, pleasure's mine, John.
You bet. Appreciate you very much. David Stryzewski, again, Sound Planning Group. And